this one right here, is used during one of the attunement processes to plant symbols into the feet, to ground the energy of the feet. And there's the lady that we spoke of earlier, Jessica, who was the lady that sees the glyphs and stuff, said something very interesting to me that I didn't forget, and I researched after this, that she was really the catalyst of it. And she said that when she saw the lightning bolts in the spiral, that a couple of times that she'd run across people who had their feet attuned, and then instead of the lightning bolts and stuff just coming here, that they were full body. They went all the way down. I never forgot that, so I started to play with attuning the feet and stuff after. So I do certainly believe in that. I do believe there's a great deal of difference. And I have noticed a certain amount of difference in my own feet after this. So that's what's wrong with you. We'll start at the top.
How do you attune the feet?
We'll get them.
Are these names the people that you got the symbols from?
Yes, exactly. The one at the bottom, Sati from New Zealand, interestingly enough. I've had some friends that have played with this, and they really enjoyed the energy of it. I think Kathleen had a drawing process for it, but it was so complex and silly that it's just one of those things. Symbols usually are best visualized anyway, when you're talking about this kind of stuff. So I like the idea that she didn't put any numbers on it, that she didn't give it this intricate, complex thing, because that would be a really tough thing to try to do in space anyway. The interesting thing that I find about the Sai Baba thing is that Rama is put into the feet, yet Rama isn't a Sai Baba symbol. I mean, we're talking about a channeled process from Sai Baba for the attunements that uses a symbol that's not from him. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's an incongruity that will pop in your mind. This is the fire dragon that we were talking about earlier when I said there was a serpent of fire and a fire dragon. Notice that it has a different turn to it. It has sort of one more loop in the spiral. This probably corresponds a little bit better in terms of the 7 chakras and all of that, but it has a completely different purpose, and it doesn't center the chakras up down the central channel or anything like that. Essentially, it deals with Kundalini stuff theoretically. I don't know about that. I do know that it does work well on spinal injuries and back problems and stuff like that. So fire dragon's a very nice additional symbol that you can use to work with all of those people that have back problems. And I'd like to disclaimer back problems right now while we're talking about this. And I might touch on this a little bit later if we go over the hand positions. But I was working on a friend one time who had ovarian cysts, and her husband had just come home from band practice. He's a very good drummer. And they were preparing for an album or tour or something. And he was very, very, very pushed. He'd really been pushing himself hard to get himself into the shape where he really feel like. And he plays like a madman. I mean, the guy's like a speed metal drummer, So I mean, on top of it all, he moves so fast it's a blur. And he asked me to work on his back before we went out. And during that process, I learned a very important thing. The person that I just worked on already had first degree, and so did the guy that I was working with. And I went into the back, and I went into where he was laying on the futon and started working on his lower back. And it took a significant investment of time, as it often can there. He'd stored up a lot of stuff there. And I was thinking about, this party that we were supposed to be at. And I'm thinking, boy, this is going to take a lot longer than I thought. I'll just quickly patch him up. And I got a very strong intuition to go up between the shoulder blades and work up between another, place where men hold anger and a lot of other things. So I opened my eyes, and his wife is working between right exactly like that. Great, right between the shoulder blades, just where I thought that'll really speed things up. Fantastic, it's good intuition. And so I finish up, and we head off to this party, and we're taking separate cars because we live on other sides of the planet back to them. And they arrived a few minutes before I did because he drives like a madman. And as he was walking through the door, he completely collapsed on the floor in pain, and his heart rate shot up and he couldn't breathe. And it's just not a very pretty situation all around. And I came in a few minutes later, everybody's just kind of staring at me like, do something. I mean, it's a very simple thing to fix. What had happened is this. A block had been removed in his lower back. It was a fairly significant one where he was used to storing energy from social situations. So he walks into a heavily social situation, goes to store this massive amount of energy in his lower back, the place where there's been this huge big trap to catch it, and there's no big trap there to catch it. So it shoots up to the next place, which happened to be that block that his wife had almost fixed, but not quite, which was exactly opposite to the heart and all of that. So I mean, it took less than 30 seconds to completely bring it back, but nonetheless, that's a very good disclaimer. People tend to spend all this time on the front and then rush to the back, and I'm here to tell you that that's a rather dangerous thing to do. I've got a lot of other stories like that collected from other people around me. Either spend time on it or don't do it, one or the other. I mean, that was my own stupid fault, and I freely admit, I'll pick up experience as we go along. Okay. Joe Ray, the next symbol. It says, this symbol comes from the Joe Ray Society. It's quite literally white light. It works well on releasing blockages. Joe Ray has become an independent Reiki system almost all its own. There is a Joe Ray attunement process up here. The stack labeled Run, Iver, Reiki Free has Joe Ray incorporated into it. In fact, the Choku Ray used by that particular lineage is essentially this symbol. I mean, it's a Choku Ray sort of inverted and at a slant. So I spent some time tracking it down. It's despite the fact that this says that it comes from the Joe Ray Society. I spoke to the guy who runs the Joe Ray Society out of New York City, and he'd never heard of this symbol before. Also, Joe Ray Society does not charge for anything that they do. So that's an interesting thing. Any pseudo small offshoot that you have calling itself Joe Ray isn't part of the main group out of New York if they're charging any money. Although they do have people all over the country that are practitioners of Joe Ray. It's kind of like, what is it, Kalami therapy? Has that made it out here yet? That's another energy system that's completely free. It's taught completely free. So these things are out there. So this guy has no idea where this Joe Ray comes from. He's essentially no help at all. I spoke to Arthur Robertson, and Arthur Robertson told me that Joe Ray was a Japanese church movement. And if anybody would know that, it would certainly be him, because after Arisha Shikuro passed away, she essentially bequeathed the Japanese-American Reiki community to his care. And so he's always had very close links with that community. So if in fact that's the case, he would know. His story is that two churches were merged, and it became essentially the Joe Ray Church. That the church deals heavily with, does deal with initiatory procedures, has never initiated a Westerner or would not initiate a Westerner. Also, there is a branch of it in Hawaii, but aside from that, they don't have no real influence in the United States.
There's the Joe Ray Society. If that's the same, they're all over the United States.
Now that one's based out of New York. It's different.
No.
It's not the church.
I don't know what the church is, but there's a huge organization in Japan, and it's really big in Brazil, and the society's all over the United States.
Yeah.
And they don't charge for treatment.
That's exactly, that's what I'm talking about, for the first part of it. They're the ones that have never heard of this. So.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, so.
Right.
Arthur said that this symbol essentially, that he learned of it, that he was experimenting with it radionically or something. It was part of his whole, the man collects symbols like they're going out of style. And it was bequeathed to him in trust, and that he released it to a friend of his who he was doing some research with, and that this friend began to spread it around, and then it got around more and more and more and more, and he feels like absolute shit over it. I mean, just like absolute shit. So, you know, anybody willing to come up with that candid of a confession is fairly likely.
So one should not say that this is a symbol that comes from the Jodo Society.
No.
In changing one's words, it has been attributed to, but disclaimers are made.
Right, yeah. That's the best guess as to where the heck it does come from.
So do you personally use it, even though Arthur
No.
is so...
No, I don't use it at all. I don't like its attunement process. I find that its attunement process deals with bequeathing your personal energy. And in fact, the people that practice the attunement process is laid out in the Reiki version, right? Which I'm sure is different than, because this is not their symbol. So why would it be their attunement process? But I understand that their symbols are primarily kanji from what they said. I haven't been home in about 3 months, so there should be a big packet of all this stuff waiting for me at home when I get there. I don't use it. I'm not attracted to it. It bothers me that the attunement process listed up here. The masters go through periods of depression for about 4 days after doing a class and attuning people to it. Which, you know, is pretty much characteristic of you shoving a lot of your energy into other people who've never experienced and having to sit back in your laurels and accumulate it again. So it just doesn't seem, seem like anything I'm remotely interested in getting involved in. I found it was really interesting that it was in Kathleen's package. She really didn't have anything to say about it.
That's from the Joe Ray Church, not the Joe Ray Society.
That's this, yeah, from the Joe Ray, wherever. Best guess is it's from the church. Robertson said that they changed the symbol once he explained it to him that he was still on rough terms with him. The next symbol underneath that is, remember I said this would appear one more time? Here it is. This is used to remove viruses. How's that for an interesting thought for a symbol? It's actually 2 symbols, one called motor, one called Xanon, drawn exactly the same, which I think is interesting. Motor is putting the symbol in, Xanon is taking the symbol out. So that's interesting. It seemed that would seem to me logical of focus of intent more than anything else. Notice that it's energized with Choku rays in the way that other symbols are that don't necessarily have any terribly inherent power. Kathleen says that she has had experience with this working with AIDS. However, she feels that people that have AIDS have fairly significant self-esteem issues and things like that to work through that she considers to be their root problem. She says that, yeah, she actually does say that in here, low self-esteem and low self-worth. These are so well laid out, sometimes I think I should just hand them to them and let you know. I have had friends that have experience with it on various viral conditions, not AIDS. A little bit more benign things. And they absolutely loved it. They absolutely loved it. So that's pretty cool. I haven't really run into anybody with a virus for me to try it on yet.
Which do you draw first, the cone or the lightning?
I didn't explain that with that last batch. This particular symbol, I apologize for not showing this earlier. I can't believe I forgot. It's drawn like this. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do it again.
Once again for this guy. I'll show this to both sides of the room here. 1. Actually, let me get a pen. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now the other side. You can holler at me. 1, 2, 3. And Serpent of Fire goes this way. 1, 2. 1,